After the devastation of the Second World War, the world needed a new economic order, one that could promote global stability, rebuild war-torn nations, and prevent another economic collapse like the Great Depression. This vision led to the creation of the Bretton Woods institutions in 1944, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. The IMF was established to maintain global financial stability, provide short-term loans to countries facing balance of payments crises, and oversee exchange rate systems. The World Bank, on the other hand, was created to finance long-term development projects such as infrastructure, education, and healthcare, particularly in developing nations. Together, these institutions became the backbone of the post-war global financial system, promoting international cooperation, trade, and development. By the late 1970s and 1980s, many developing countries faced severe debt crises. To rescue struggling economies, the IMF and World Bank introduced structural adjustment programs. Under these programs, countries could access loans, but only if they agreed to implement a set of economic reforms. CAPs were based on neoliberal economic principles, emphasizing free markets, privatization, and reduced government intervention. Countries were required to cut government spending, including subsidies and public wages, privatize state-owned enterprises, open markets to foreign competition, and focus on export-oriented growth rather than domestic consumption. The IMF and World Bank argued that these reforms would restore economic stability, reduce inflation, and promote efficiency. In theory, liberalized markets and fiscal discipline were supposed to spur investment and long-term growth. However, the reality was far more complex, and in many cases, devastating. Critics argue that structural adjustment programs deepened poverty, undermined social welfare, and made developing countries dependent on Western economies. Cuts in public spending led to declines in education, healthcare, and food security. Privatization often benefited foreign investors, while local industries collapsed under competition. Many African and Latin American scholars observe that structural adjustment programs seem to lock developing countries in a cycle of dependency, forcing them to export raw materials while importing finished goods from developed nations. By the 1990s and 2000s, mounting pressure forced the IMF and World Bank to rethink their strategies. New initiatives like the Poverty Reduction Strategy Papers, PRSPs, and debt relief programs emerged, emphasizing local participation and sustainable development. Yet the legacy of structural adjustment programs remains controversial. Many countries are still grappling with the consequences of those policies: debt burdens, weak industrial bases, and persistent inequality. The story of the Bretton Woods institutions and structural adjustment programs is a story of ambition, controversy, and lessons learned. While created to stabilize and uplift economies, their policies remind us that development cannot be imposed. It must be inclusive, context-sensitive, and locally driven.